It's time for the Film Crickets with Jay Fortier, Chris Martineau, and Melanie Howerton. On this week's episode, the Crickets are joined by Brett Erlich from TYT's Rebel HQ and review the 1984 American black comedy horror film, Gremlins.
Does it stand the test of time? Let's find out. Your Film Crickets are on now.
All right. Hey, friends. My name is Jay Fortier. I'm along with, normally I say my good friend Chris Martineau. He is absent today. And I use that word because he is a teacher, so absent is most likely the word. They still use that word, I assume. So, yeah, he couldn't be here. But Melanie has joined us again every week like she does. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, doing well. And we are psyched to have Brett Erlich. He is from TYT. He contributes to, he does the Damage Report. He does the main show and Rebel HQ. And if I'm missing anything, let me know. Welcome, Brett.
It's great to be here. Secretly, I'm the director of programming at TYT, which means as awesome as it is to be on camera, when I'm off camera, I'm scrambling to make sure that nothing breaks.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well,
but I miss... Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm very grateful that you would even think to ask me on, so thank you so much. I'm excited. I saw Jessica Burbank did the show a couple weeks ago. She's fantastic. You guys are fantastic. And it was pretty awesome watching Gremlins again.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's a wacky movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. It's been one of those that you just sometimes stuff stays on your radar for many, many years, and some slip by. And this one is the one that slipped by for me. So before, like I said, I had said off the show, I had said to Brett that I had seen it about a month ago and watched most of it this time again. So it's like, I got it. But before that, I want to say the 80s. I'm not sure.
Are you kidding me?
It was, so it's been a long time.
Oh my god.
Same for me. I hadn't seen it since the 80s.
Yeah?
Since
So I
cowering
feel better.
behind the couch in the 80s, 89, when I was 7. I guess that would make me 7. Just being like, this is too scary. I was a Gremlins 2 kid. I've seen that 700 times. And so watching it again now, looking at it, all the things that I thought were so creative about Gremlins 2, I was like, oh, that was just a throwback to all the stuff they innovated with Gremlins 1.
Yeah.
And Tony Randall was in that, I think, playing some sort of a intellectual version, right?
Yes. I want to say...
Unless it was just in the trailer.
There were a bunch of people that showed up for a few seconds. The big things for me when I don't know if he was just in the trailer for that, but definitely the I think it was the grandfather from the Munsters was in it, but an homage to him, an homage to Julia Child was in it. A lot of archetypes invoked that I thinking back, I'm not sure that they were actually played by the people they were supposed to be in the movie.
Was that the one that
I
was
think
in the corporate building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gremlins 2
I
takes
remember
place.
who was in that.
Yeah.
Do you remember one of the girls? She had red hair and she was kind of a little bit bitchy, and she was
Marla?
the girl from, what was her name? You remember
Marla,
her name?
I believe.
Yeah, she was from 16 Candles. And what was it? No. Yeah, it's 16 Candles with Molly Ringwald. She was the girl with the blonde hair that they had to cut her hair out of the door when she got it stuck in
Oh,
there.
all right.
Yep, that was her.
Yeah.
It was Phoebe Cates was in it. The uncle from the Gremlins had his came back. Billy Peltzer's there. The dad was not there in that. I'm not sure he was still. I don't know what happened to him. But yeah, so the difference between Gremlins 1 and Gremlins 2, the new batch, I believe it was called,
Yeah.
is instead of
Yeah.
Kingston Falls, the little small town, let's just boot back. Let's turn all the lights back on in the Back to the Future, the Universal backlot mini town. They
Yes, exactly.
took it to the city, and the Mogwai returns, and it's all in a clamp towers, not in Trump towers. Clamp. Instead, it's basically a Donald Trump type who is in a skyscraper in New York City. But yeah.
No kidding. It's been a long time since I've seen that one too.
So
But
since you grew
Melanie,
up with
like,
that,
you've seen
did
it
you like
tons of
that
times.
better? Oh, sorry, Jay.
No, that's all right. That's a delay.
Since you grew up with two, did you like one better or two better?
I now hate and resent myself for liking 2 better growing up. Like, the difference between 2 and 1 is 2 is overtly super duper campy. Looking at this movie,
Yeah.
Gremlins 1, like, you don't really even, there's no genre to put it in. Like, it's a dark comedy, but not like any dark comedy they'd make anymore. Like, I feel like most of the people in the film are running around being like, is this a comedy? I don't know if I'm probably going to make it because the evil things are so cute. And then they yeet the neighbor out the door. The crazy cat lady goes flying, and I'm pretty sure she dies.
Yeah, so about that crazy cat lady, I always make jokes all the time. I've even had my kids watch. They've seen the whole movie, but just clips of that lady again when she's kind of coming down the stairs and she's talking to all of her cats. Oh, you're a bad kitty. Wait for this kitty. Oh, let me feed all the kitties. Whatever. I'm like, okay, that is me when I get older. I'm like the crazy cat lady, and I think that's also Jay's wife, Wendy, too. That's what we're gonna be like when we get older. Just so you know.
I know that crazy cat lady character survives. When we did Rotten Tomatoes show, we always used to do like watch this movie as though this actor is playing the same role in both. And the Chris Columbus overlap with this and Mrs. Doubtfire, the crazy cat lady is the woman who lives next door to Miranda and Sally Field and Robin Williams, and ends up calling the police and breaks up the marriage, thrusting the movie into Act 2. Yeah, that's her. That's what I love the cast of this movie very much.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, she's always going to be known as Flo to me because from Alice.
Right.
I don't know if you're too young for that or not, but yeah, Alice. Every time I see her, all I can picture her saying is "kiss my grits."
I feel like I was just IMDb deep diving. I feel like the Chinese guy is in Alice as well.
Really?
I don't know. I forget if it was Chris Columbus or who had the overlap, but I definitely saw Alice in my IMDb like fever dream earlier as I was like, what came first? But yeah,
Well, it was supposed to be like a comedy horror, obviously. I don't know if you want to. Do you want to do the rundown of what the synopsis?
Yeah, I have
is
that
and
in a
all
second. I just I do want to mention Joe Dante, the director. He has also done other things like that. He did The Burbs, which also has the same exact vibe, horror and comedy mixed, which people didn't know how to handle. Which is funny because they knew how to handle Gremlins, kind of. I mean, except for the kids, but we'll get into that in a minute. But and also Small Soldiers, which was a little later in the mid '90s. Do you guys remember that one?
I never saw Small Soldiers.
It's actually pretty good. It's these toys that somehow. Dennis Leary puts a a crazy mega type of chip into some of them. And I think they accidentally end up like that. Oh, that guy Dick Miller, that guy that's in this movie. That's the next door neighbor, ex-military guy.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He's in that, and he gives the kid who's watching the toy shop a couple of extra toys to help his his dad's shop, and they end up coming to life, or starting to battle each other. It's really funny. So yeah, it's kind of like he does these when he does these movies, he does I think Dick Miller's in at least 4 or 5 of them, that Joe Dante has done. So it's pretty interesting. Right now we do what we do is we do the IMDb one sentence synopsis, and my kids actually do the reading for it. So I have a pre-recorded version, and boy, I feel bad. My 7-year-old had to read this sentence. You're going to hear it in a second. It's just like, wow, I had to do some, okay, now this is how you say that, because he's 7, and I wouldn't expect him to know half of these words. Okay, you ready? Here we go.
It's time now for the one sentence synopsis from the IMDb.
A young man inadvertently breaks 3 important rules concerning his new pet and unleashes a horde of malevolently mischievous monsters on a small town. The film crickets are on now. I hope you will be lucky, and I hope you enjoy the show.
That was quite a mouthful for him. He did a pretty good job.
That was
Malevolently.
That was so cruel. That was so much alliteration and like shoehorned alliteration. It wasn't stuff that you would, intuitively come up with. They were like, what else starts with an M we can shove in this sentence?
I know.
About those rules, but since we talked about the rules, I mean, the rules honestly, like sunlight, water, like, okay, doesn't every living thing needs to drink something? Doesn't every living thing needs water? And the thing is, like, okay, well, that bar scene where they were all drinking beer, that's liquid. You're not supposed to get them wet. They're not supposed to drink anything. They're not supposed to get wet. They were not multiplying in the bar, so I noticed that. And then the hugest thing is, and I've always thought of this even when I was little, after midnight. Well, when can they eat next? Because literally everything after that is after midnight. Is there a time after that they're allowed to eat? Is it 1 a.m.? Is it only from 12 to 1? Is it anything after 1 a.m., then that's fair game? That never made sense to me whatsoever.
And that's why that's many reasons why this pet.
Thought put into... Yeah, there's not a lot of thought put into the consistency factor, especially like how hard it is to kill them anyway. Because like I don't understand why the mom isn't put in charge of figuring out how to murder these things. Because she, in the first scene, she hits one button and it's pureed. She goes and she puts another one. He's already in the microwave. Boom, he's gone. And then she disappears for the rest of the movie as Billy's like, I don't know what to do. Maybe we could catch them at the movie theater. Like in Gremlins 2, there's like a whole part where they absolutely call out how inconsistent and strange it is, where they're like messing with Billy and they're like, let's say one's in an airplane and he gets some caught in his teeth and he flies across a time zone and then it comes loose and he eats it. Does he then turn into a gremlin? And it's just, I think what they're basing it on is they're so damn cute and it's such a ridiculous premise and a ridiculous experience, and it's so out of genre that you just kind of you put up with it. I wonder if that kind of grace would be given to a film these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an original idea. Nobody had ever done anything like that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
well,
it was like because it was
of things from this.
Right, but I mean, it was so adorable. Like, and then so scary. The one question that you could at least begin asking is it a kid's movie? And I think Brett kind of answered that earlier.
Kids movie. I feel like it's supposed to be a kids movie. It's supposed to be. I consider it a Christmas movie. It was supposed to be out actually during Christmas, but again with the whole after midnight thing. Well, what do they actually eat? Because he told them all these rules, but he didn't tell them what to feed him. So, I mean, what is he eating? And at the end, the mom's like, well, I think he might like some chicken soup. So, okay, I guess he just eats regular people food, And then she's like, oh, I hope that he's housebroken. And then she's like, I hope that he's housebroken. And you're thinking, okay, so how is he going to the bathroom? Is it a cat box? Is he going in the toilet? I mean, what does he have newspapers laid out? I mean, I don't know.
There's a special there's a special category in in mascotry, I guess, in like these creaturedom. It's like it's similar to, like the Gremlins themselves are similar to like the Chick-fil-A cows, where you're like, these cows eat more chicken. They like write it out. They're literate, but like not that literate. Like they can spell, they can write. They just kind of can't spell that well. Same with these Gremlins. The Gremlins are out there. They're like, I don't. There's a lot of stuff they can't figure out. They kind of speak in half sentences, but they all have like really good fashion sense. Like they're all picking out really good coherent. They have instant cultural understanding and appreciation. Like one of them it was born literally like 32 hours ago, and it already knows it loves Milk Duds.
Yeah. Well, also, did you guys when I was watching it this time, I was kind of thinking like, when the dad goes to pick up this strange creature that he's never seen before, he keeps calling it an it or whatever, but then he brings it home. I mean, this little creature is like an animal that you have never seen in your life. This is like this crazy creature you've never seen in your life, and it can talk, and it's very highly intelligent. And they're so unimpressed with all of that. They're not like, oh my God, where did this thing come from? Is there more of them? Like, how did this thing get here? What is this thing? It's like so unimpressive to them. Like, oh yeah, this is my new pet. Oh, that's really cool. And then when he's like multiplying several times, like Corey Feldman's like, yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, it's really cool. I'm looking at it. It's really cool. Like, it's just so unimpressive. It's like multiplying
and the
new
dad,
things are coming off.
The dad says, "Oh, this, we could make $1 million off of this. He might be the replacement for the dog, right?" And by the way, I want to ask, how did they afford the house with the dad having that as a job?
I thought of that too, because she's not working. Well, they said you're pretty much supporting half your household. Like, so apparently the son who works at the bank is contributing all this money to his home, but yeah, he's not working. I mean, his gadgets are pretty cool, but they fail immediately after. The mom doesn't work. You can tell they're having money problems, but how did they afford any of this? I thought of that the whole time I'm watching this, being an adult. For this time watching it, going, okay, I don't understand how they're affording this nice house and this nice neighborhood, and
because his inventions are terrible.
Huh?
So bad.
His inventions.
The median
are bad.
house price in America has really risen, and that's it. Back in Kingston Falls was built on a nuclear test site, so as evidenced by the gremlin plague, to be honest. So I'm pretty sure it was a steal. And Billy does work in finance, and yes, he's a bank teller, but who knows?
He's a child laborer.
Like
they look to him for the money.
That kind of income.
Child laborer.
They look for him for the money because dad sucks.
Oh yeah, that's so sad. I like the dad. But
speaking
of like him working at a bank, when Mrs. Deagle comes in and she does it twice. She's threatening a dog, like, oh, I'm going to put him in a spin cycle. Just give him to me. And, oh, if I get my hands on him. Twice she's threatening the life of this dog in a bank, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that'll do it. Put him in a spin cycle. That'll kill him for sure. Nowadays, you say something like that, people would be like, they would beat the crap out of this person for like basically saying that you're going to like find this dog and like kill him for no reason whatsoever. You would never be able to get away with something like that now. And they're all like, whatever, she's fine. Yeah, that would kill him. That's right. Like, it's like not a big deal.
Yeah. There's a lot. So yeah, I don't think this is a good movie. I think this is a bad movie. Like, that's part of its charm. But like,
right.
You look at another like Steven Spielberg produced movie of the 80s in Goonies, right? And it's got the magic to it, and that holds together more. Yes, it's like got this grown-up kid vibe, but there's not as many like gaping holes in the plot outside. This one, it's just as Steven Spielberg really unlocked the key of the and changed Hollywood to create the blockbuster summer film. In that just a few years before this came out, and as George Lucas unbridles the merchandising, hegemon of that what Hollywood could do in terms of merchandising. This is just like really cute and creepy but fun little beasts running around. Like, if you have a cute enough thing doing weird enough charming stuff, you don't need a plot that holds together. You don't need rules that make any sense. You don't need what's very obviously a dewy-eyed gizmo. Like, its eyes are like shiny and reflective and so cute. It doesn't have to drink water. There's just so much of this. It's like, yes, this movie makes no sense whatsoever, but we're writing it around the set piece of the bar scene and the movie theater.
Oh my God, and the bar scene with the breakdancing and the leg warmers and everything is so funny.
Yeah,
it really
it's like send up
when you see that part of it.
Yeah, it's a send up of contemporary. It's so funny because this movie has so little that holds together plot wise, or at least like rules wise, but it has the hubris to take pot shots at Flashdance.
Yeah. I'm telling you though, as much as, well, it was actually supposed to be a much darker movie. Because Joe Dante wanted it much darker. I just realized, I was doing some research and I realized some deleted scenes, which let me tell you about these because these are pretty crazy. Okay, so Billy's mom not only dies, but she gets decapitated. And
oh my God.
When he opens the door, when he comes home, her head rolls down the stairs. Okay.
Oh my God.
And they cut that out. Okay. Gremlins, they also eat the dog. Okay.
Oh.
Even there was poor dog. And sometimes, like I said, you can watch a horror movie and you're like, okay, the people are getting killed. Oh, come on, not the dog. It's like, you get all upset of the dog getting killed.
To just go along with the idea of people and dogs and the way they react is, the scene in you've seen Independence Day?
Yes. Oh, don't even talk to me about it. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Bring it.
Oh, okay.
I need to hear this.
Okay, so in the tunnel when Will Smith's girlfriend, Jasmine, and the little boy are trying to run out of the car and then into the little side door. Well, they showed it to test audiences, and that's all that happened was them escaping the fire by themselves, and nobody cared. And they were like, let's add the dog. And they added the dog, and they called him, like, whatever his name is. He comes running, jumps just in time before the flames come. The theater, the test audience went, oh, like they all went nuts. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, got it. I like to care more about the dogs than the kid. It's great. It's true, though.
Just like in I Am Legend, when they killed that dog, I'm like, come on. And I remember my daughter watching that, and she was like, if they kill that dog, that's it. I'm not watching the rest of it. And then we watched another movie. There was a shark movie. And this little tiny Yorkie's like swimming along, and you're like, oh my God, he's going to get eaten by the dog. And then you don't see the dog, and you're like, what the hell? And at the very end of the movie, the little dog, he's still there, and you're like, oh, good. Like, all these people got killed, and you're like, oh, the dog is okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So going back to like deleted scenes, there was also a McDonald's scene where the customers are being eaten instead of hamburgers by the Gremlins. They cut that out.
Oh my God.
This is a huge plot change that I never knew. So not only was, how there's Spike in the movie with a little, mohawk there. There was never supposed to be both Gizmo and Spike. Gizmo was supposed to turn into Spike. And they were going to just get rid of Gizmo. It was just Gizmo, when he changed, he was supposed to turn into Spike when he got hit with the water. And Spielberg overruled that, stating, no, Gizmo's cute, and he thought the audience would really love him and that they would want to see him through the entire movie. Thank God, or they wouldn't have been able to make any of the other ones because everyone loved Gizmo. So, but can you imagine that? They were just going to get rid of him and just turn him into Spike?
Right. And when people say stuff about the movie making process, they always talk about like the studio shows up and the true auteurs get silenced in the service of, Hollywood money making. I'm hearing some of these changes, and on the one, definitely with the Gizmo stuff, I'm with it. Like I want to keep the Gizmo around. it's probably a, quote, better movie with more stakes or whatever if Gizmo freaking turns into Spike or Stripe and like dies and can't come back. Maybe at the end they find a way to revert back to the old Gizmo thing. But like when I was a kid, I was afraid of everything. Like I wouldn't want to watch TV after 10 p.m. because I thought everything was suddenly scary on TV. So I stayed away from this. But like, there's this weird flex that people would do back in the day where they're like, I like scary movies because they're messed up and they can be funny. And kind of the weird middle ground that I find in this film when it goes from like Spike shooting someone in the face to like they're just doing a fun dance with leg warmers on. I kind of want to see what it would have been like if Mama's head rolls down the stairs to Billy's feet. Like, I don't know if they, and that like, you're right, with the Burbs as the analog, like maybe the Burbs was too dark and this was just light enough to make it into the warm the hearts of America when it came out to merit a sequel, and there is no Burbs 2.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Burbs is phenomenal. I love the Burbs. I think it's a quote fest. You can just talk about it all day long. I think it's one of those things that caught on after the theater. Like the theater was like people just they had no idea what the hell was going on. Then video came out and they're like, oh, okay. The right people found it. And so like with the Burbs, they have the darkness and this one here, I don't know, it's like such a strange thing because they have the way the kids, like they want to bring kids in, and the theater, I guess the trailers were having mostly Gizmo, or they weren't really showing much at first, so they were bringing people in because they were like, wow, look at this. Oh, it went up against it came out the same weekend as Ghostbusters, and it came in number 2. I mean, that's pretty good. And it came in number 4 when it was all said and done for the year. So, like, I mean, it all kind of worked, even though it was kind of a messed up sequel. You know what I mean? Like, idea, like, being such a horror slash.
Yeah, where this falls in the history of movies, in the transition from auteur filmmaker 70s to, all right, just print it, put it in a blockbuster format 80s and 90s and 2000s. The trailer is, I hadn't thought about that, but like cutting this movie into a trailer and marketing it has had to have been so difficult. But I do think like the ways that it doesn't stand up to me now are just like a lot of it's just like the way to make a film scary and spooky in the 80s was just to add goo.
Yeah,
like
gore,
there's so much goo in the movie. Yeah. It's like dirty, like grimy, smoky goo. That's something that I don't know if you can cut that into a trailer. It makes me want to watch the trailer and see how it ended up for Gremlins.
So what it was described as, at first they weren't showing them. They were showing like talking about Billy got a Christmas present from his father. It was an animal, and they were sort of like kind of dancing around it because like in that type they kind of did that with E.T. They weren't showing E.T. right away, and some of the early TV spots were focusing on Gizmo. So what do you think? It's PG. What do you think parents are going to do? They're going to take their kids to see this cute little guy.
So I just have a couple things. I'm a big nerd for special effects. So the making of it, like as far as like, those little fur balls that kept popping off of Gizmo before they started to grow, they were done with balloons. And then even the gremlin in the microwave, it was done with a big balloon that would explode. And this is so weird. Like I literally never knew this before I read this. Initially they started using monkeys and they had gremlins masks over freaking monkeys' faces. So whenever like the gremlins had to climb something or run, they wanted to use monkeys and have like gremlins costumes on them. but the monkeys weren't cooperating pretty good. They were not liking this mask on their face. And
as animals
they also
won't.
were pretty freaked out and pretty scared. And they just got too startled too easily. So then they had to go to puppets. So that's when they had to start making all the puppets. And then the Gizmo itself, they had so many problems with the puppets because the puppets were so small. So they did have some puppets that were being controlled, up here, but the other ones were like, there's so many digital controls in them, and Gizmo was so small that he had numerous puppets, and it's kind of like the shark from Jaws. It was so frustrating to them because it kept breaking like every 2 seconds. So just kind of funny that I literally can't believe they were going to use monkeys.
When we talk about whether we always talk, will the film hold up today?
Yeah.
The reason they didn't use monkeys eventually, it sounds like, is because you say that they didn't cooperate. Now you can't, like, I did a thing with Disney, with Marvel and Disney, and it was for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Simmons and Fitz, those characters, in season 1, all he wanted was a monkey. And so, as like a lab assistant. And the amount of stuff that comes along with trying to incorporate animals into any shoot these days, especially monkeys, like they showed us, the Disney legal team showed us like all the you cannot do's with monkeys, and it was like specifically orangutans you can't show. We wanted to show a photo of a monkey, and they wouldn't let us, so we had to draw a cartoon version of a monkey. To think that they were like,
show a photo?
I think it has to do, it's because Disney couldn't guarantee that the monkey that was in that photo was treated well and allowed to live in the wild in its natural habitat for long enough. So they're like, don't do it because we don't want to be a part of that. But then to think back to 1983 as they're shooting this, just going like, yeah, put the mask on the monkey. Cover it in goo, put it in the microwave. You get the monkey in the microwave. They love it. Put a banana. Get a monkey microwave.
Oh my God.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're right.
Terrible.
They could do a lot of things
It's
with
true.
animals back then they can't do nowadays. That's for sure. But I couldn't believe it. They made like special Gremlins masks and shoved them on the monkeys' heads, and they were like, "No, I don't want this."
And there's someone in like props just going like, I love and hate my job at the same time. I
You
don't
want
know.
me to make
They
a
said
mask
monkeys.
for a monkey? Yeah. Okay, let's hold him still. Let's try to put this. Can you imagine when somebody's trying to hold them still and the other one's trying to pull the mask over him?
I can't get any of the lines out. It's the whole movie's ADR because it was just like cackling. That's fantastic. Everything is very obviously puppets. Like the stuff that your brain while watching this movie is like, yeah, I know it's a puppet, but I love that it is wearing a trench coat and flashing Phoebe Cates right now, even though it has zero junk. Like I'm sure there was a conversation like, I know the gremlin's going to flash it. Do we give him like a weird genital? Like it doesn't have to look like any human genital because this thing doesn't even drink water to survive. So we can do anything we want. Like, do we have it look like another gremlin down there? No, they were just like,
Oh my God.
ASAP.
Wow. Well,
I guess they
speaking
don't need genitals to procreate. So I guess it works out.
That's true. That's true.
Just jump in the water.
Just put some water on them.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Phoebe Cates, she had a reunion with Judge Reinhold, and there was a movie that they were in for Fast Times at Ridgemont High, so like there was a love connection or a wishful love connection there in both films, which is kind of funny. I really hating Judge Reinhold, though. I love Judge Reinhold.
I know,
In
I like
this
him
movie,
too.
it's like I
Yeah.
can't stand him, and it's like I can't. He's so likable.
What about Phoebe's Kate's story there? Okay.
Oh my
as her
God.
Christmas story.
Hey,
come
children,
on.
gather round. And by the way, if you're bringing kids to see this, they're probably
God, that's all
younger.
I thought of.
Like, hey, we're going to see some sort of weird Muppet movie. All right. And then we're going to not only reveal that Santa's not alive, not real, but he can also die if he goes in the chimney.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then the smell was so bad that's when I was 9 years old, I lit the fire and there was this terrible smell. I'm like, oh my God. And well, you know what? They wanted to remove that. The studio executives were like, no, take this out. Take the scene out. They did not want it. But Dante fought so hard to keep that in there because he thought it was more like, no, this is what this movie's all about. It's supposed to be horror. It's supposed to be comedy. But I remember even being little thinking, you can't fit down a chimney. I'm sorry, but I remember thinking, who the heck is a grown man can think that he can fit down this little chimney chute? I don't know. I don't know why we were trying to do that.
You can't even get it. Like, I was on a roof today, like, looking at a chimney, being like, there's no way you can't even get far enough in to die there.
No, you can't.
Right.
No, and I even remember
You'd be lucky if you could fit your foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's horrible. And oh no, sorry, Frank. Did you guys notice who Frank was? The cop, Frank?
Yeah, he's like in a bunch of stuff.
Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad and all that.
That's him.
Yes. Isn't that
That's
crazy
Mike
how young
Ehrmantraut.
he is?
I saw. I think that's. I was gonna pause and look it up, but I was like, I'm too close to missing the show if I pause right now.
Yeah, and
But that's
actually,
him. He's so good as the drunk cop.
And actually, he has some of the funniest lines. It's so funny. He's sitting there looking, and I have this written down just because I thought it was so funny. He's like, "My God, Frank, that's Mrs. Deagle," and then he goes, "Jesus, Frank, that's Dave Mars. He does Santa every year." And then the sheriff goes, "What the hell is he doing right now? And what is that stuff all over him?" He's talking about all the gremlins all over him. I just thought that was so cute. And they don't do anything to help. This is the cop and the sheriff. They're driving around and they see people flying out of windows and the Santa's running around with these things on him and he's dying and he's like, "I want to go home. I want to go back to, can't we just go back to the station?" And like as they're driving down the street, Corey Feldman's trying to get rid of the ones that are on his roof and they're just like trying to get away from everybody and go home to safety. Which I'm like, okay, don't get out of your car and try to shoot anything or help anybody or anything.
For kids watching it today, if you were to say, all right, let's go watch Gremlins, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think they would have trouble with the genre. There was just a time, like, the Disneyfication through the like 80s and 90s and all even through, like, there's some things die in Marvel movies that you're not quite sure, like, there's a lot of murder in Marvel movies that, like, people actually die as opposed to, like, they just kind of fall and you never see them again. But with this, I think another thing kids would have trouble with is, like, there's a mall.
A mall.
And there's a movie theater. That's, like, very Spielberg-y to be like, all right, let's do a movie. You know, I know he didn't write it or direct it, but he, like, produced it and it has his fingerprints all over it. The fact that everyone's going to be watching this in a movie theater because that's how you do in 1984, and then scary things are going to happen there. This love of movies that makes its way onto the screen in a meta sense. They're watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is like,
funny that they're singing Hi Ho though.
And I love how he was like, "They're watching Snow White," and then he goes, "And they love it." So cute.
I love the Gremlins.
I do. I love it. And
Like,
and you were talking about movie theaters and all that kind of stuff in malls. Okay, both my kids were just at the mall yesterday, and every time a good movie comes out, we go to the movie theater. So this is still a thing for us.
Okay, good. I'm like scared. We don't have any kids. I'm just like, do people still mall?
Yeah, they still do.
Oh, that's good.
Not as
I'm
often.
so happy.
Yeah,
like,
not as
all
often.
the malls where I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, all the malls like turned into like just sad, empty experiences.
Also, do you remember the robot that was in the back? Remember the guy was calling from the convention center and there's a robot in the back? He was on the phone. So I guess that's the robot from this movie called Forbidden Planet. It's the same robot, and he says the same exact lines in it about talking about rust and stuff. So same exact lines,
Amazing.
Same robot from that movie. And then what else? Oh, so we have to talk about what the Gremlins is from. Where it comes from. The word Gremlins is actually originated in World War II. When any mechanical thing went wrong, especially with planes, they would blame it on gremlins, little tiny monsters. And then in 1943, there was a book called The Gremlins, and that's how Spielberg wanted to like buy that and try to make it his own and try to do a movie off of that. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. And let's pause there for a second.
Yeah.
Talking about, they could have just left it there. And there's tons of like trolls and little mischief makers in European lore.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to bring it back to World War II. But instead they went with Chinese people of magic. Let's get the guy who plays from the Charlie Chan movies, which that is the actor from the Charlie Chan movies, to go and be this magical Asian dude. You know, and we'll get like the Japanese technology invoked by the dad, but we'll kind of mix it and go across the bay or the sea and go to like, we'll do the China guy because we get more of a beard iconography.
Yeah.
And Mogwai actually is like a Chinese word for demon or gremlin or devil. So they just went with that. And it's just the fact that they did that is also just like, I'm not sure they would do that and get away with it now. Just being like, okay, so what's the answer? A magic Chinese dude.
I never thought of him as magic. I thought of him as just like being knowledgeable and like knowing things that we don't know. And I guess the whole premise of this movie is basically us Americans take something that's innocent and pure and don't know how to handle anything and turn everything into a big chaotic freaking mess and some with evilness mixed in with it. I don't know. I guess that's what they're just trying to tell us.
And how chill he is at the end, where he's like, "You guys messed up a little, anyways. Here's $200.
And why is he
Here's
taking
your
them
money
back?
back."
I don't know why he takes them back. Obviously, they learned their lesson, and I kept thinking of that too. Like, why is he taking them back? He likes his family now. He's got a family. Billy loves him. And I'm sorry, even though this freaking thing is a puppet, okay, the first time that Gizmo pops his cute little face out of that box, I had tears in my eyes. And I still had tears in my eyes watching it today when he's going, bye-bye, Billy. I'm like, oh my God, no, just stay. Why do you have to leave? They've already learned their lesson. Just let him stay. It's like,
Because Corey Feldman's going to spill another drink.
What?
Because Corey Feldman's going to spill another glass. He's just, something's going to happen. And it's going to be like, oh, here we go again. They're going to mess with the clock.
Apparently that's what happens in part 2. So they screw up again.
All right.
It is what happens. In
How did that happen?
Gremlins 2.
How did it happen?
In Gremlins, I wasn't confident I would remember, but here's what happens.
Okay.
There is the old Chinese guy dies.
Yeah, I remember that.
And working at Clamp Towers is Billy Peltzer and his wife Phoebe Cates, Katie. She is a tour guide with a ridiculous hat. He works in art because he's an artist and he draws things. But he gets the Mogwai, he gets Gizmo and puts him in his drawer and is like, I gotta go. Don't get in any trouble. Just stay in the drawer. And on the other side of the cubicle jungle in that floor is a drinking fountain that's on the fritz. And the mechanic, the janitor guy or like the handyman tries to fix it. And as he's doing it, it keeps going further and further. And it squirts like 50 feet and goes down the easel and across the paint thing and over the side and drops right on Gizmo.
Of course.
As he's in the drawer.
Aw. Okay, yeah.
And all the same stuff. Where they're like sitting underneath the soda fountain or whatever. Instead of the soda fountain and the balloon stomach, it's like the soft serve and the balloon stomach. It's like a fully functioning TV studio. So it...
Yeah.
In the building, so they go through a bunch of different TV sets and like some spooky, like Tales of the Crypt type show and a Julia Childs type show, and then they go and there's also like a crazy lab where they're doing experiments there. I think Vincent Price is actually in it, or
are you kidding?
Or what's his? Oh no, who is it? It's Saruman. No. It's one of those. It's someone a notice.
Was he really in that? I don't know.
I don't know. Let's see. I'll look it up. But yeah, that's what happens. That's how Gremlins 2 occurs.
So the Christmas song in the beginning, Christmas. Every single time I hear that song, I think of Gremlins immediately. It just reminds me of it immediately. And then I'm like, oh, I want to watch Gremlins. Yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah,
just always,
Christopher
every time I
Lee,
hear that
from,
song, I want to go watch it.
So the guy from Lord of the Rings.
What?
Yeah,
No,
Lord
he
of the
said
Rings?
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee
Oh, Christopher Lee.
is the guy who runs the scary lab where they're doing experiments, and so you end up having like a lightning bolt gremlin, and you end up having like a gargoyle flying gremlin.
That's right. I remember the gargoyle one. Oh my god, I haven't seen that in a while, but I do remember that.
Salad bar gremlin.
Salad bar.
He turns into salad bar. He just starts turning into like tomato face, and he's a vegetable.
Apparently, they got into the
growing
lab and got mixed up with a bunch of experimental things.
Yes, that is it.
I've seen it. I just can't remember all of it. When you're saying it, it's becoming more apparent to me. I remember some stuff. Does anybody else wonder what the dog was thinking, the real dog in this movie the whole time, watching the Gremlins? I was watching, I always have thought that, but I was watching it today too. He's watching things bubble on the ground, and he's watching Gizmo, and the dog's just sitting there making little faces, and I'm thinking, what's that dog really thinking? Like, what is
I've definitely interviewed people who train dogs for movies.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just treats on a stick.
But they've got to be wondering, what is this thing?
But it's all about eye lines with that. Like, they put the treat. The dog looks past everything but the treat. I'm like, so what's the deal? He goes, well, they're food motivated. So it looks like the dog's looking at the thing on the ground most of the time, but really there's a treat on a stick further on the eye line that he's staring at. But I think the dog's thinking like, all right, I've eaten toys like this, like I've chewed on toys like this, but I'm pretty sure that my contract stipulates I'd be financially responsible for any damage done to props.
I'm not allowed to mess with this toy. Oh my god, imagine if he just grabbed Gizmo and started shaking him all over the place. Like back and forth like dogs do with their toys.
And Howie Mandel stays in character. He's like, no.
That would be so funny. Howie Mandel would do something like that too. He definitely would.
Howie Mandel has the same rules. He's like, keep water away from me. I don't eat after midnight, and I don't shake hands because I'm a German.
No after midnight. It has to be 1 or after, or maybe nothing until 3 a.m. We're not sure of the rules, but...
Sunrise. But then they're going to die so if the sun rises and they're under it.
Exactly.
But I want to say before we hit final judgment, unless you have more, but I want to say that the dad could narrate anything.
What?
His voice is just spectacular. Like
He
could narrate. Like he could just narrate any story, and I'd be like, I really want to pay attention to this. It's like absolutely just the right bass and the right tone. It's just awesome. So
yeah, but he wasn't very smart. I mean, why would you follow some creepy person into this dark, grungy alleyway? I mean, aren't we taught not to do that from when we're kids?
Wait. You're calling that little kid the creepy kid? You see, he wasn't creepy. The dungeon was creepy. I mean, if anybody says, come down here to my shop, you're going to be led to the place. This is your
grandfather's shop? Like, it doesn't look like a grandfather's shop. That'd be like, who knows what's going to happen down there? Who knows? I mean, that's crazy.
He tries to sell the bathroom buddy.
Yes.
It's like
he already got it from the guy.
And right there, that's an American thing. Like, I'm going to just say this to this, ancient Chinese guy that's like, it doesn't even semi-relate to me at all. So, all right, you ready? Here we go.
It's time now for final judgment. Are you ready to rubber stamp this bitch? Here's the final judgment.
All right. Now it's time for final judgment. Sorry, I didn't cut you off there, Melanie. But
It's
it's
okay. I just
time
wanted to say that
to-
smokeless ashtrays were a real thing, and my grandmother did have one of those for guests that came in the house.
Juicers were real. Coffee machines were real. You know what I mean? Like, he's like putting out all these inventions that already existed.
Yes,
That's
he
brilliant.
is. Yes.
So,
Go
all
ahead.
right, Brett, you kind of already alluded to how well it holds up today, but why don't you just, etch it in stone for us?
All right. My final judgment on the film. My final judgment on this is that it is a horrible movie that you can't help but love.
Did you say
Everything about it, if
horrible
you
or
were
horror
just
movie?
horrible
No,
movie.
horrible.
It is a bad film.
No.
It is a bad film, but I say that you can't help but love it. It is able to, at the same time, give you these very steadfast rules that it doesn't really apply by. It doesn't really live by. There is inconsistency in so much. It's hard. I'm sure there's screenwriters that are like, you just broke like 20 rules, and not like in a good creative way, in what seems to be a lazy way where you think that like the special effects and the silliness will carry you through. But at the end, it does carry you through. I love Gizmo. I want to hang out with the Gremlins. And I think I could have like that Phoebe Cates bartender vibe for long enough for us to really find a common ground where we set up like a part of town where they can just go wreck stuff. But at the end of it, I think it holds up as a fantastic symbol of a simpler time in filmmaking where you could just make a movie that doesn't really make sense, and as long as you were as much yourself in making it as possible, that authenticity would come through. And never underestimate the power of a very merchandisable mascot.
Well, I like that. Jay, how about you?
All right, I'm going to split on some of these. I feel like it's kind of on a 50-50 level because there's a lot that we mentioned that absolutely does not work today while watching it. You're like listening, checking out all the different things. I think it looks really bad when they're walking down the street. All the Gremlins, like it's the stop motion is just bad. Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer makes it look, you know what I mean? It looks good compared to them. So there's stuff like that where it's like, oh, that's pretty rough. But Gizmo himself, when he's, you know, I mean, he's a close-up thing. He's not stop motion, so he looks great. I think he still looks great.
He does.
Like, you know, you want to pick him up and hold him. And so here's where I'm going to say where it does hold up. It like a couple of years ago, they created a Gizmo toy that's like a Furby. Like, and it was an actual Gizmo, though. You could buy that. And, you know, kids seem to, you know, I don't know if they went nuts over it, but still, parents probably bought it for their kids, and the kids, you know, probably enjoyed it, I assume. The other part is that they are coming out with an animated series on HBO Max for like 2023. Almost like an origin story. Yet the guy who plays Billy has I don't know how big a part, but he's got a part in it. So it's got to hold up a little if they're bringing out other things today. somebody's got an interest in it. So I'll leave it at that, like a 50-50.
He lives in Georgia now, too.
He does.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. Yep.
I'm
And
Lives with
Melanie.
a friend of mine in Georgia.
It just rings his doorbell. I love your movie.
Yeah, let me go find out where he lives. I'm just kidding. No, I'm gonna say I want to be one of those people that is like when I was doing Caddyshack and I was like, no, this does not hold up. This sucks. But I want to be more like that, but I'm not with this one. I'm always, I kind of lean more towards this holding up, and I want to be that grouchy person that's like, no, it doesn't. It sucks. But I like it too much to say it doesn't hold up, and it's not just because I like it, but because of some of the things that you were saying. There's too many things that were influenced by this. There's too many movies. Ghoulies, for one. I mean, just Critters. I mean, there's a billion things that kind of were inspired by Gremlins. There's commercials that were recently seen. I think was it Domino's? I don't remember, but some pizza thing or whatever. There's constantly things that are bringing this back in some way. The fact that there's toys and there's bands named after the Gremlins, and there's commercials, and there was that lawsuit actually that you were talking about, the Furby. So the Furby looked like Gremlins and Gizmo, and they actually sued Furby for this. And what they wanted in the end result was that they wanted to make they won the lawsuit, but they wanted them to make a Gizmo. They were like, if you're going to make Furbies that look like was something that we created, then you're going to end up making Gizmo. And they made Gizmo. And I had stuffed animals as gizmos, and my kids had stuffed animals as gizmos, and you know, yeah, you just want to pick them up and squish them and kiss them, even though you know it's not real. So I think he holds up because he's so cute, and I do consider it a Christmas movie. I like the feeling of it when I watch it. I still like that feeling that I get. I love the whole beginning of the movie, and you know, and the snow-covered streets with the Christmas lights and just everything about it. The person who did the music in the movie, I think, was really spot on, and they won an award as well. I do think it's a great movie. Huh?
No, it's hold on. I have it right here. No, I purposely wrote that down because 2 weeks ago, it's Jerry Goldsmith, and he did. 2 weeks ago, we did the movie Poltergeist. He was the composer for that too.
Mm-hmm. See, he's really good, and I like the movie and that. I like the music in that a lot too. And then I'm always going to say this, and you know, again, and I know a lot of times when people are saying on this show that a movie doesn't hold up because, oh, we've got the leg warmers going on, and we've got the break dancing or things like that. That to me is never going to break a movie because, again, and I will say this 1,000 times, we were old enough now that the 80s are in style and people like watching things about the 80s. So if this movie came out exactly the way it is, people understand that this is an 80s movie. It's made in the 80s, and people may want to see it because of that, and they're going to understand that these technology things that you know that they didn't have then and that we do have now, things are different because this was taking place in the 80s. And I'll say this again, and I hate always saying the same things, but if I can show this to teenagers now and they like it, well, that proves that it's holding up, because there's people around this time and 17 and 18 and 16 and all these people that are watching, and they think it's cute. So if they like it, and all these 80s things are coming back, and I still like it watching it. You know, there's a lot of problems with it. There's things that literally don't make any sense whatsoever, especially with their rules. It doesn't make any sense. But you look past it because it's just too freaking cute, and you just gotta like it. So, yeah, I'm gonna say it holds up, because I just can't imagine trashing this movie and saying it doesn't hold up, because it was too good, and it made a ton of money when it came out. And honestly, if it came out right now, I think that despite some of the dumb things in it, I think people would still think it was cute. That's just me. All
right. I just like the idea that you said that they sued Furby, and I can picture Furby sitting behind, like, you know, like a desk, like having to answer questions like in front of a judge, being cross-examined. So,
I want to be that person that says, no, it doesn't hold up, because I had more fun when I did Caddyshack, and I really didn't like Caddyshack. So I had fun basically saying, no, it doesn't hold up. But now I'm like,
dropping bombs.
It's so hard. It's so hard for me not to say it doesn't hold up. So I almost
That's all right. That's okay.
I almost did go 50-50. But yeah, I just kind of switched it around and said, yeah, it does.
No, I mean, obviously I said stuff holds up. It's just that, you know, this other stuff that I look at and go, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like the special effects there, that's pretty rough.
It's got a crap load of problems with it, for sure.
But it didn't take itself seriously, and having that in the original DNA of the film gives it a lot of leeway to hold up now, because it was campy. It wasn't serious. It doesn't need to be viewed in a new light now, because the original light was one of thorough camp. There is a gremlin, a flashing Phoebe Cates right before another one is a maniac on the floor. Like
that's awesome.
It is hilarious. And then there's goo everywhere. I think that I definitely see your point there, and that allowing it to hold up as opposed to Caddyshack, which you might look at as like, oh, this was a bunch of like slow misogynists in, you know, making a film about stuff only they really liked.
Yeah.
Right.
And like tiny little skits in it too. When you were saying that, you know, because it was campy and they did things on purpose to kind of make fun of it as they were doing it. So remember how we were talking about that story that Phoebe Cates said in Gremlins 1 about her dad and everything, and you're like, oh my God. So they make fun of that in part 2, which is so funny because she's like it's like all of a sudden she gets all serious again and all quiet, and she has to go about how like Lincoln's birthday was totally traumatizing to her, and she has this whole horrible story that she's going to say, and then they interrupt her with something. But that's so funny because they realized in part 1 that this story was just crazy, and so they make her do the same thing in part 2, but they're making fun of it. So I just thought that was kind of cute that they did that in part 2.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's something that disappeared after a certain point in the 80s where, you know, and they try to bring it back with Stranger Things, the ability for a movie to exist in a bunch of different, like, to change genres at the drop of a hat. Like, that was a very intense, terrifying monologue, an actor's monologue to, you know, the scene before that, Santa had green goblins on his face as they were like, let's go back to the station. And in the next scene after it, like, there's, you know, dogs playing poker, but they're gremlins.
Yeah.
And in the middle, she's telling the story about how, like, why she hates Christmas.
Yeah.
It's a send up. It's a send up of the seriousness with which monologues like that happen in other horror movies, but maybe it's not. That's what's so cool about Gremlins is it's like, are they serious now, or are they just as jokey as they were a second ago when they were singing Hi Ho and searching for milk duds?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's why was it Joe? Dante? Is it Joe?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why he fought so hard to keep that in there. He fought so hard for that because they did not want that part in there. But he was like, no, it's very important to this movie.
Well, listen,
right,
Brett, thank you so much. No, it's all right. I just want to thank you for joining us. And I want you to maybe tell everybody how to find you.
Awesome. My name's Brett Erlich. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, where I think that's really the big ones. Brett Erlich. You can go watch me on Twitch every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern for Happy Half Hour, twitch.tv/TYT, and Game Busters on Fridays and Damage Reports on Fridays. You can see that all at twitch.tv/TYT. And if you get really bored, you can go to youtube.com/viral videos and watch really old videos I made about internet trends.
That's very cool.
Nice.
I'll definitely I'll start following you on those too.
There you go. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was super duper fun.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Yeah,
you were
thank you.
amazing. Yeah.
So much fun,
I mean, do
man.
you watch a lot of movies?
Yeah, I used to host the Rotten Tomato show.
No way.
Nice.
Yeah, so 2008-ish, we did the Rotten Tomato show. We got nominated for a Webby for a segment we did called Saw the Musical, where we sang all the ways everyone in the Saw movies died. That was my favorite.
Because you're really good at analyzing movies. That's why I can see you doing that for sure.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm most qualified to do. I did ABC's, you know, We Love the Movies and do their Oscar stuff every so often. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You should come back another time
it.
and do something else with us that you like.
I'll do this whenever.
That's awesome.
Awesome,
Yeah,
man.
it was so fun to have you. You're really good at it too. So.
Yeah, you'll get a kick out of Chris, man. He's a blast to have around too. Sorry he couldn't be here tonight, but yeah, thanks again, man. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you later.
Chirping about movies.